All right. So, welcome to our second in the series of Wearable Arts Show and Tell Artist Profile Series. My name is Rain Vandenberg, and I'm with the Greater Sitka Arts Council, and we're doing this series to raise awareness about wearable arts and hopefully inspire other artists that may want to get involved in the show. I'm the secretary on the board for the Greater Sitka Arts Council and an artist and also an education and training consultant, and I live here in Sitka. I'm excited tonight to be speaking with Lois Verbaan, I hope I said your last name correctly, who has participated in 5 years of wearable arts in Sitka. And so tonight we're going to talk about her work, her inspiration, and challenges that she's faced in her various projects, and what she loves about being part of the Wearable Arts show. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and share the presentation.
Hi Rain, and hello everyone. Thank you for being here tonight.
Welcome. And this is Lois. Sorry, I've got to find this one. And view, present. All right, so you should be seeing, so I've jumped ahead to there. All right, so welcome everyone to Wearable Art Show and Tell. And just a little bit briefly about Wearable Arts in Sitka. Wearable arts is not a new idea. It's actually been around since the 1930s in various forms, but it includes fiber artists, artists working with recycled materials or materials that aren't usually used in clothing, and as well as using traditional arts in clothing. So could be kind of any or all of those things mixed together. And all of those kinds of things have been in our Sitka show. This is from the one on the left is from last year's show with Alaska Airlines, who is a major sponsor usually of our Wearable Arts here. Wearable Arts in Sitka was brought here by Jeff Budd from Ketchikan, and Ketchikan and Juneau and Anchorage all have Wearable Arts shows. So welcome, Lois.
Thank you very much, Rain.
So glad that you could be here tonight. My first question for you is, what inspired you to get involved in your first Wearable Arts show?
That's a great question, Rain, because I've been in Sitka from Australia for about 11 years now, and my first 7 years, I don't even think it was on my radar until somebody invited me to participate in a group called the Denim Dolls, and I don't really even remember the theme, but we had to make something out of denim. Mm-hmm. And a good friend of mine was participating, and I've got a little creative streak through me, but I never would have described myself as creative. So I participated in that one, had an absolute ball. I think what hooked me was being on the runway. I was raised in a very conservative background where modesty was prized over other things, and modeling was certainly not encouraged. And nor was looking very sexy, and I just loved it. I put on my red lips, and I do every year for that one night, and just feel really good. And
to strut in your extra tufts. You Absolutely. Own that walkway. It's awesome.
I'm not one of these humble models that can just make it for other people to wear. I love being up there, and after that, it grew from there. I've learned so much more. Yeah, it's just been a process and an evolution to the point that I started thinking of others, and I've been wanting to mentor young folk to participate as well. And and since then too, the creative process has not just been about creative expression. It's been about something relaxing to do when other people might read a book or watch TV. I might just do it to self-regulate, like 5 minutes here, half an hour there. And I just love the projects that are monotonous. As you can see, this dress here in this picture made out of dog food bags, a lot of weaving, a lot of hours of in and out. And that's when I play my podcast and my inspirational talks, and I just let my mind relax and become inspired.
Nice. And what kind of crafting or art experience did you have before you started being involved in Wearable?
Well, my mom was a preschool teacher, and she always collected stuff in case we needed it. And
okay.
I'm not a hoarder, and my house is pretty tidy, but I'm always looking out. Like my partner teases me. We were walking out by Herring Cove and I saw this old rusty mattress spring and I'm just like, I wonder if I could make a dress out of that.
Nice. And what do you love about Wearable Arts? Why do you continue to be involved?
Like I said, the initial hook was just being on stage and the crowds and the lights. And then as it's gone along, I've seen it as a bit of a technical challenge. How can I make something that's more difficult to put together? I don't have much sewing experience. My mom was the kind of sewer that would just pinch things here and there and just, oh, fingers width here and fingers width there. So I haven't got formal sewing experience, but I just love creating things. And lately I've just actually, from about the second show, I've started I was doing groups. So I just love involving other people of all ages because I love to see them get their self-esteem up. Like people that go, oh, I'm not creative or I could never do that. But they're the people that I want, whether on the runway or creating something. It's a very big passion of mine to inspire, especially young women and raise their self-esteem. And I think this comes from a journey that I've been on and this is just one way to do it.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of your pieces. You had mentioned this one was the first one that you were involved in denim. So can you just tell us a little bit about what inspired, like how you actually put it together and any challenges that you encountered in making it?
Yeah, this was my first outfit and it was a little simple. Like all of them, I don't start with this vision that I'm going to be a cowgirl on the runway. I just thought, oh, jeans, old jeans, they're pretty cheap from the YD. And I'm just going to cut the seams out and sew them together. I broke plenty of needles in the process. I didn't know about the technical aspect of using a sewing machine and sewing denim. But finally, you know, the way it was cut on the cross or the stretch of the fabric made it a lot longer than I was intending. I really wanted some kind of skirt. And then I realized I can wrap it around and then it went from there. I can use the waistband around my top and I can add these accessories and create a look that I was very happy with.
Yeah. I love the fringe the element that you added on top of the extra, it looks on your boots.
Yes, and Rain, that's one of my trademark pieces in my shows. You'll see that there's always extra tops and that's what keeps it sticking to me.
Yes. And then another year was Northern Lights, and tell us about these pieces.
You can see I was still kind of in the stage. This is my first show that I did on my own, not as a part of a group, but I actually did create a group of about 5 other people. I collected all the materials, their kelp from the local beaches, and I dried them all. I spray painted them and gave a box of seaweed, dried seaweed, and 2 colors of tulle to each member of my group, and they were encouraged to do whatever they wanted with it. So here I just draped a creation over the front of a dress I already had, made a headpiece with a girl that has since been in several of my shows. I met her in the old Ben Franklin in the sewing section saying, excuse me, you look creative. Do you know anything about making headpieces? So
Nice.
We're still friends and she helped me construct that and I just think it gave it the wow factor. And of course we put the postal code on there to again make it a little more Sitka. And with all of the different models on the stage, it did give a feeling of Alaska, Southeast Alaska and the Northern Lights, although we don't see it very much here.
Yep. And how about this one, 4 Seasons in One Day?
Well, this one started, I think it must have related to the theme originally. I forget what it was, but I wanted to use plastic. I started with the little girl's dress. You can see the flower dress. I collected lots of yogurt containers, all kinds of containers. I experimented with it was very hard with these number 5 containers to bend the petals. So I ended up using different sizes to create depths and layers. And then one of the challenges was involving that young girl who was about 7.
And she's in the center picture. You can see her kind of in the background there in the full dress.
Yes. And for a 7-year-old, spray painting is very fun, but quite challenging. You've got to watch where the nozzle's pointing. And in my dress, I collected hundreds of large yogurt lids. And when I was putting it together, I just didn't like it. So spray painting over twigs on the lids and the twigs and the lids were on brown paper, which I thought, well, this looks really good. I'm going to make a cloak out of it. So the cloak has all of these crescent designs in the colors that the lids were. Then I think what was fun, but no one realized, is that I actually made a dress out of a pair of pants, which was a challenge to me. And so my look is the winter look, and we have all the seasons there and the other people in the group I put together.
Okay. Nice. And was, let's see. Now let's talk about Roped into Happiness.
This was my biggest group, and I encouraged people that had never been, and these two girls on the far left had never been in a show, let alone made anything. And I think the girl on the right there said, you know, I'm not artistic. I'm like, well, can you wrap a piece of rope around a dress? You know, what can we do with this that just looks stunning? Because I love these shows where there's lots of people that come out. It reminds me of a real fashion show, one person after the next, and it's just wow, you know. And they don't always have to be complex and take a lot of time to make, but it's an idea and it's a look. I made that outfit on the left for that girl. The other people, the far left, she made a macrame dress for herself. Some people made their own. But the way it all got started is the way most of my pieces get started. I just saw all this rope lying around Cruise-Off Island, like, oh my gosh, like what a waste, what can I do with it? And as you can see this draped over myself, this ship's hawser, I carried that about 5 miles from Shoals Point back to the cabin on Cruise-Off. And I still didn't know what I was going to do with it, but that leads me to talk about challenges. It was the first one that I really felt I was experimenting with 3D construction. I wasn't just decorating a dress, I was making a dress out of a rope. We had to build a wooden frame, and that was my size. And then I wrapped the rope around it to create a big coil, tied the coils together with a paracord. When it was all done, the paracord stretched and the thing didn't fit me. So I had to do it several times.
Wow.
And then, you know, underneath that, there's a dress made of fishing net. And the hair is a deconstructed rope. If you take every rope apart, there'll be 3 pieces. And I hung it up outside my garage and spray painted. I made the wig by first making like a swimming cap out of duct tape that fit my head.
Nice.
And then I lay it over my lamp and hot glued all of that rope on top of that.
And then added a beautiful crab body for the for the top, for the crown.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I think there's a few more here. So another close-up of your skirt. And was that a heavy? It must have been so heavy.
It was very heavy, yes. And after the show, I rarely keep my pieces. I don't have the patience for having things lying around. So I sold that rope on Sitka for sale for $10.
Did they have to take it out of the skirt, or did you take it apart?
They had to take me with it.
No. Oh yeah, right.
No, I think somebody lined the edges of their garden bed with it or something. But I did keep my piece from last year because it was used in another show in Anchorage as well, and it was easy to store, but this one certainly wasn't.
Yep. All right. And so let's talk about that one. This is named Warp and Woof. Can you tell us about that? Well,
I really got into my mind that I wanted to do some weaving. It started with the ropes, and I started doing my own weaving on a loom that I made, and I was halfway through and realized, oh my gosh, I've been stretching out this crinkly rope, so when I take it off the loom, it's going to spring back into some small size. And so I didn't forget about this idea of wanting to weave. And of course, I've got a dog and lots of dog food bags, and just wanting to reuse plastic, cutting those strips and weaving them. And then because I was enjoying the weaving process so much, the relaxation that comes from this repetitive activity, I made the cloak that you see on the right out of pages from a book on Rembrandt sketches that I got in the free pile outside the Whitey.
Nice.
And it was very delicate paper with black and white pictures of these Rembrandt prints, you know, etches. And I cut them into strips, and I realized it was going to tear because it was such fragile paper. It might have even been an old book. And so then every strip had a strip of duct tape put on the back of that to give it strength. And that actually created a really nice inside effect. I draped it, and then I decided, oh my gosh, let's put them together. This dress needs a cloak. And that was the year I realized that the reveal, the great reveal, is what makes your garment much more exciting. I do one lap of the runway with the cloak on, and it's all like nobody knows what else there is coming or if there is anything. And then the next, right here in the picture, I'm taking my cloak off, I'm doing a 360, swirling it around the curtain to somebody waiting there to take it, and I do another lap without it, and the crowds are going wild because they didn't expect this new look.
Yeah, that during this show, there were several artists that used that same kind of technique. They had an outer garment and an undergarment, and it was really fun to see that, the layers of that, of the anticipation.
And it's a good idea when you've got more ideas than models, or you can just layer things. I'm doing that again this year.
Yep. We'll talk about that in just a minute. You've got a little teaser for us for this year's thoughts, but you also last year worked on this collaborative piece with some younger artists. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, these children are from a family that I have had a lot to do with in all the years that I've been in Sitka, and was seeing them grow up, and it's just really enjoyable to create something with all of them. And it was challenging. I'm used to working with children, but there's a new set of challenges when you've got 4 kids in a room at once with all having a little task, you know, like, no, don't cut that. No, don't touch the hot glue gun. So there's a lot of hot glue in my things. Professional sewers would be very unimpressed with how much duct tape, hot glue, and packaging tape I use. But the little fairy in the left has strips of food bags, like when you get your blueberries in, or your frozen beans. And then the wings are made out of cardboard with lots of silk flowers that I collected that I spray painted silver. And then she's got fairy lights that are battery operated, which you can't see in this picture. And she loved it. Each one of these kids chose what creature they wanted to be. And the great thing is that it created a little story. Like I said before, I'm really into mentoring young people, and this was a story of self-esteem. And so the little girl, second from the left, she is a unisaur. She is the daughter of the unicorn, far right, and the dinosaur. And this little unisaur didn't feel very good about being so unique. She wanted to be like everyone else. And you can see a tree there on the left in the background. That's actually held by a model who swayed the branches as we started with very mystical forest Celtic music that set a beautiful scene for the words that I recorded in my partner's studio at Raven Radio, recorded over this music a little story about, magical forests long, long ago, something like that, and then the sad unisaur came out. It was so hilarious. She had sort of buried her head underneath through the hole, like there was just this little unicorn horn sticking out, and the crowds just went wild. They loved this too, and the kids loved it as well.
Yeah. One thing I really like about our Sitka show is the multi-age aspect, and that we really often do have all different ages of folks participating, and that we have a lot of freedom in what it can look like. You, as an artist, you have a lot of power and control over what your spot looks like, what music you have, the lighting that you have, so you can really create your own moment up there on the stage.
I love that too, Rain. You brought to my attention that other wearable art shows are a lot more strict about how you stick to their theme or whatever. I usually relate to the theme by the title of my piece or the choice of song. But honestly, what I make is guided by what's around, what I get inspired by. And as you can see here, these are cardboard boxes. The dinosaur's got coffee lids on it, coffee bags on his body, coffee cups on the top. The mouth are boxes from coconut milk cans from the grocery store. And I just love that, like you said, we've got such free reign to do what we like, and that all age groups are welcome in this show.
Yep. And so for you, you're inspired by the materials, right? You're always on the lookout for those materials and how they might be used. And do you do a lot of experimenting with the different materials and how they kind of work and how they'd look with duct tape versus hot glue, or how does that process go?
That's a good Good point. So you said, oh, you're always on the lookout for materials. I'm not actually on the lookout. I just see them. I'm just like, oh, look at that rusty mattress spring. What can I
Right.
do with it? You know, I don't premeditate anything. But I have to say with this one, I was sitting on a 14-hour flight from Australia back to the US, and I started thinking about a self-esteem story and
Mm-hmm.
how I could relate it. It just came to mind because I was thinking of ways that I can inspire young people and work with them to boost their self-esteem.
Uh-huh. Okay.
But as far as your question about do I experiment, for everything you see on the runway, there was about 5 false starts.
Okay. 5
5
full
using
starts.
different materials that I just thought, you know what, this doesn't look good at all. I collect
Mm-hmm.
all kinds of things. And it's like, this doesn't do anything for me after a while. And then 5 false starts with actually what I'm making with it.
Mm-hmm.
And 5 arrangements of, oh, the top can go like that. Oh, look at this, look at that. So
Yeah.
it's really, I never know how it's going to turn out. And sometimes it just sits in my craft desk for days as I look at it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure, you know, people think I'm losing my mind. I just stand there and walk around looking at it and go
Yeah.
back to it the next day and look at it again for ages until suddenly one day I'm like, damn.
Yep. That's a great description of the artistic process for sure. So this is a little bit of a teaser about what's next. You gonna tell us anything about these pictures?
Yes, well, firstly, you might remember the cloak that went on the dog food bag dress, the
Mm-hmm.
Rembrandt pictures. Well, we can see that cloak on the far left. I have repurposed that into a dress,
Okay.
which I'm going to create a little scene, like an acting scene, with a French street scene, an artist drawing somebody with a very modest cloak, and she throws the cloak off and struts down the runway in this really sexy dress.
Nice.
Um, you can see I'm still in the mood for weaving.
Mm-hmm.
So here I have the middle one is something I'm doing with the kids again.
Mm-hmm.
We have dyed these newspapers. Well, first, did you know that there's 6 columns in a newspaper? And if you cut it into 3 parts, that's 2 columns a strip, and then you fold it over for strength. We dip it into paint. I was thinking, you know, wouldn't it be great, real blueberries, but that was too time consuming. So
Yeah.
using just red and blue paint, I created all these colors, and the kids are then weaving. And it's amazing what a challenging and fun activity it is for 6 to 10-year-olds to weave. It's
Mm-hmm.
really easy. You can't leave them to themselves for a moment because they'll all be messed up. And then you can see far right, I've used heritage coffee bags and police crime tape for that good pop of color. And I've
Okay.
got 2 outfits there trying to make really harness the Alaskan theme. One of them is going to be Alaska ball gown, and the other one is going to be a really hot evening out dress that's got a really cool halter neckline. And
Okay.
you can see the far left, I just love 3D things. As you can see, I've got a real symmetrical thing going on. I think it's very calming to me to create symmetry.
Mm-hmm.
And you know those optical illusions where you see stairways that go up in all directions and you
Yeah.
don't know where they end and which direction. That's what I try to create with this. But
Mm-hmm.
I started off with a big bucket of nails that we had lying around our house and thinking, what can I do with these nails? And I experimented with all kinds of things. And then I got a piece of Hessian fabric. I've got a cloak that's green as well. And I had a lot of counting. You can see all these threads had to be counted, 28, and then pull one out, and 35 and pull one out. And I've created a nice 3D stairway effect, which is going to be a cloak.
Okay. And so what are the yellow pieces, they're nails? Those are nails?
Those are nails, and they started off being regular nail colors, and I tried to spray paint them white, and the paint reacted with the metal and
Okay.
turned yellow. And so they just look great popping
Yeah.
out against the red Hessian, and the other cloak is green. I hope it doesn't look too Christmassy,
Uh-huh.
but I think I'm gonna make it really edgy with a lot of black and kind of a grunge punk look overall.
Okay. All right. I think part of the process as an artist that's fun is those unexpected things that happen when you're like, well, what if I do this and this? And you're like, oh, well, maybe that'll work. Oh, that works actually better
Exactly.
than you thought. A lot of times there's something happens that you're like, well, that's better than it would have been what I thought at first. So
Yes, and I'd like to point out that, as you said in the beginning, you're an artist, and Rain has actually decided not to make a piece this year, so she could be on the board and do all this kind of thing. So thank you very
oh
much for doing
yeah.
this, Rain.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So we have a few minutes for questions from people that are viewing today. So if you have a question, feel free to just pop in and ask. You can turn your video on or not. It's up to you. I want to give a shout out to Bobby today for letting us use her photographs. She does such an amazing job every year of photographing wearable arts, and she was generous to share her photos for this chat today.
Yes, thank you, Bobby.
Hi, Ellery. Go ahead with your question. You need to unmute.
Hi.
Hi, Ellery.
So I'm curious what the schedule is for this year's art show.
Sure.
And yeah, how far into preparation you are for it.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about that. So we're still planning on our fall show. And we have the date of September 19th. We'll do 2 shows on that day, a matinee and an evening show. And the deadline for artists that are interested in participating is May 31st, just to let us know. There's a form on our website to let us know kind of what you're thinking. You don't have to have anything totally nailed down, but it helps us a lot with our planning to know kind of how many folks we have. We usually need about 20 to 22 people to put a show together. So,
well, and I also just want to
yeah.
say thank you, Lois, for sharing. It's so fun to look at what you've done.
Thank you, Ellery. Thank you for being here. And I would like to invite anybody that happens to see this or your friends to contact me if you want some help or mentoring or anything. I really want to be there for anyone who thinks that they've got any sort of interest, whether you think you're artistic or not, whether you think you can pull this off or not. I would love to help you. And I'm on Facebook at Lois Verbaan.
Well, yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks. And yeah, it's so fun. It's so fun also, of course, to hear about your process in making it, but also just how like joyful you look wearing it on stage.
Thank you, Ellery. I sure was.
Thanks, Ellery. Any other questions? We got some thank yous from the other folks that are on today. So just a couple of quick things. Was there anything else before I move to the kind of closing, Lois, that you wanted to share?
No, thank you so much for this interview. Thank you everyone for being here. And I hope to see you either in the show or at the show in September.
On the runway.
Absolutely.
Yep. All right, and then so just a couple of quick things. You definitely can get involved in wearable arts if you're interested. Again, go to our website and there's a place to submit a form by May 31st. And there's also a place for volunteers. If you want to volunteer for the show, it can do kind of stage kind of stuff, background stuff. You can help us in the green rooms. You can help us during the event. There's a lot of different ways. You can be part of the planning committee. So please let us know how you would like to get involved. And as Lois said, that there are experienced artists like Lois that are willing to do mentoring for new artists. If you just want somebody to kind of help talk you through, or you need someone to brainstorm ideas, there are people that would be happy and excited to be part of what you're up to. So under sitkaartscouncil.org, you can go to events and the Wearable Arts show. We also have a tab for this series. We have a recording that's available from our last one with Karen Kraft, and this one will be posted early next week. So that we're kind of starting a collection of our own Sitka talent here. If you want to support the Greater Arts Council, we have a GoFundMe that's available from our webpage. And then there's also, we have a kind of monthly subscription for $4 to $5 from Patreon. That is a huge help to our organization so that we can offer things like wearable arts. So I think that's about it for tonight. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming.
Thanks very much, Ray. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Lois.
Nice job. Thank you.
Yep. All right.